Now the images, we've all seen them now, people running, screaming after two bombs went off near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. At least 3 people were killed, one of them an 8-year-old boy. More than 140 are hurt. It leaves a lot of questions for us. And this morning we are joined by terrorism expert Brian Kingshott. He teaches a course on terrorism at GVSU. Thanks for coming in so early here, even earlier than normal for us. So 4:30 in the morning. We appreciate it, sir. Let's start off with some of these questions here, because immediately people thought terrorism. That was the first thing that dropped into their minds here, and they wonder, is this something that was domestic? Is it something that perhaps was Al-Qaeda?
Well, this is always the problem. When something goes off, somebody wants an immediate answer. We need to have the evidence lead to where it leads. We don't need really speculation. It could be this, it could be that. One thing people don't understand is that with all terrorist groups, they watch each other and say, well, that's a good tactic, that may work for us. So you could say that the timing and the fact that they were close together relates to one group, but other groups watch that. The thing that's changed, really, it changed in the 1980s, when initially the bomb would just be to make a statement. And in the 1980s, they changed it to put a secondary device, which leads so that when the response comes in, the first responders, there is another explosion to kill them. The idea is to threaten people, to make them feel unsafe, to try and make a statement to say, whatever the government says, they cannot protect you. That is the statement they're trying to make. And so we can't really say that it's international, we can't say it's domestic. The domestic idea is possible because we have April the 15th, which is tax day, but also coming up we have the anniversaries of Ruby Ridge, Andy Weaver in Idaho, and Waco in Texas, and the Oklahoma City bombing, and of course Hitler's birthday. So all that comes up, and we're going to keep an open mind, I think, until we can decide what is it.
One where I guess, the other concern here is this something that could happen here in the near future again, somewhere else, same place?
Well, terrorism isn't only about an action that takes place, it's a threat. So that if you can threaten somebody and make somebody feel unsafe, you've achieved your objective. And so here, I think the resilience of the American people will be that, yes, you've attacked us on here, but you're not going to stop us. And I think you need to say thank you to the Boston organizers and the police departments and everyone there, because when the bomb went off, they went immediately, and they knew that there's a possibility of a secondary explosion. Yeah. So I think that was that's bravery, as we always know of these incidents.
All right, we appreciate it, Professor Kingshott. We appreciate you coming in here. This conversation is going to continue this morning here. We'll be talking with you again here coming up on Daybreak. So I appreciate your willingness to stick around this morning. It's 5:20 right now. The image is horrific. People running, screaming after 2 bombs went off near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. At least 3 people dead, more than 140 hurt. And it leaves a lot of questions for us this morning. And luckily, we're joined by terrorism expert Dr. Brian Kingshott. He teaches a course on terrorism at GVSU. He has a lot of experience with this sort of thing from living in Britain for a number of years here. Let's start off with talking about and continuing our conversation from earlier here. Apparently, what they're going to be doing today, the FBI is going to be looking at the signature of these bombs that went off. Yeah. What's that mean? Well,
the good thing is when a bomb goes off, it leaves a pattern, a blast pattern, and also various content. The content of that blast will have glass, debris from nearby concrete, wood, glass, but also components of the bomb. Now that's good, but even better is there was one that was not exploded, and under a controlled explosion they're able to find out a lot more information. And what that information is how the bomb was actually constructed. What was in the bomb? How did they put it together? Did they tape things together? And whoever makes the bomb has a signature on how they actually solder the joints, whether they use a cell phone as an activating device, a mercury switch, all kinds of things. The person that builds it may be clever enough not to use their bare hands and put on latex gloves, but you could still get DNA within that bomb.
we're talking about the Fifth Third Riverbank run here this morning and any kind of concerns and adjustments they may need to make. Is that something that people should be concerned about? Could there be any danger associated with running in that race?
No, because what you've got to understand is that when something like a race is put together, there's a lot of contingency plans with the local law enforcement, with the Homeland Security, to make it safe for people. Now, the route is carefully planned, and they have contingency plans as if something was to happen, what could we do here? If something happened at this location, how would we evacuate people? Where would we move people to? So there are a lot of contingency plans, and no, it wouldn't concern me at all.
Okay, we're going to continue this conversation an hour from now during our 6 o'clock newscast here. I appreciate you sticking around to talk to us a little bit more about that here.
Welcome back. It's 5:49. At least 3 people are dead. More than 140 are hurt after 2 horrific bombings at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. It leaves a lot of people with questions as to who's responsible for this and why they would do this. This morning we're joined again by terrorism expert Dr. Brian Kingshott. He teaches a course on terrorism at GVSU. So a half an hour ago we talked about how the FBI is looking at the bomb signature and how it was made. What other kinds of evidence will they be looking at in the hours and the days following this?
Well, the primary one will be looking at all the CCTV footage, but they will also be appealing to everyone that was there that would be using their cell phones or their cameras to record their own family members coming in. And immediately thinking, well, there's no evidence in that.
Right.
But the thing is, evidence doesn't come as evidence. It's quite nebulous. So somewhere in the background of someone's photograph, someone's video footage, there may be something that is part of a jigsaw that the FBI have that fits together. It may be very, very important. So for the people that, thinking, well, I don't think I've got anything of value, I think they really need to go forward and say, well, it may be of value, and just give it. Because evidence is a little bit like having a 1,000-word jigsaw puzzle without the picture to know what you're putting together.
Right.
And so all those little cell phone photos are of importance.
That's exactly what I would think about any cell phone pictures or pictures that I took. These won't mean anything, but they're pleading for those pictures.
Yeah.
They may hold the key.
Yes, because when you look at your picture, you're looking just in the foreground of what you actually focused on. You're not looking in the background, and that's where they will be looking. They'll be looking in the background, and that may be very important to them.
Obviously, this is early on in the investigation. A lot of people are wondering, Al-Qaeda, is there any way to tell at this point?
No, and I don't think we should jump to any conclusions whatsoever. The evidence will lead us to the offenders, and so you can make assumptions. It could be this, it could be that. But the thing is, in terrorism, all terrorist organizations look to each other to see what they're doing. What did they do that was effective? Could we use it for our own statement, really? And so you can't say, well, because this happened, it happened and it was by this group, then it is this group. We don't know. We've got to follow the evidence.
And we don't know right now. And so
no, we
it'll
don't.
be very interesting, and everyone will be watching as the investigation unfolds.
This is going to take a long time.
It will. Okay. Dr. Brian Kingshott from GVSU, thank you for joining us again this morning. All very interesting information as we try to put pieces together and wrap our minds around what's happened.
6:19, just turning 6:20. The images, of course, horrific. We've all seen them. People running, screaming after 2 bombs went off near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. At least 3 people are dead, including an 8-year-old boy. More than 140 hurt. And a live look right now outside of Tufts Medical Center in Boston, where a lot of people were taken. It leaves a lot of questions, as you might imagine, and as you're asking right now. Why is at the top of the list here? Dr. Brian Kingshott teaches a course on terrorism at GVSU. He's been talking with us all morning about what's been going on and what happened in Boston. Also talking to us about some of these bigger questions, like was this Al-Qaeda? Was it domestic terrorism? Do you have any kind of clue as to what it might have been?
No, I don't think we should jump to any conclusions. The term Al-Qaeda simply means the base. And Al-Qaeda is not as strong as it used to be. And so it could be that some other smaller entity is going to claim responsibility and claim they are part of Al-Qaeda. But we don't know, and I think we've got to wait for the evidence to lead us.
This is something, though, that surprises you, because normally some organizations would claim responsibility, even ones that didn't do it.
Yes, that is quite surprising. That doesn't follow the normal pattern. Normally, somewhere on the internet, there'd be a group claiming responsibility or making statements about it. But at the moment, there's a lack of that going on.
Is there any chance that this will follow a pattern, that we may see this happen again in the near future?
That is always a possibility, but you see, you've got to go back to the idea of terrorism. Terrorism isn't only the action that takes place, but the threat of an action. And so this means that everyone else is going to review their plans for group meetings, such as race meetings. But when you look at issues such as that, there's a lot of planning that goes into this, and all those contingency plans are constantly changing and being updated. People are always thinking outside the box. How can we protect this?
Do you think they're going to get somebody who did this relatively soon?
I don't think so. I think there's too much information out there that needs to be sifted through, and it will take a long time to sift through that information, but I think there'll be little movement within the next 72 hours.
You know, there have been a lot of other countries that have dealt with this. Great Britain, for example, Israel all the time, these types of bombings. Is this something that may become more commonplace in the United States?
It's always a possibility, but there again, we're going back to this idea of the threat. We don't need to keep on thinking, well, could this happen? Maybe. What if? We don't need to go to the scenario. We need to be strong and say, okay, you may win this little battle, but we're going to win the war.
Yeah. Very good advice. Thank you very much, Professor. We appreciate your time this morning.